So with the guidance of Gord Cooper, their mentor, I present to you Paper Wings.
I'll have this ready in a second. Okay, hey everybody. Sorry for the wait. We're Paper Wings. My name is Spencer Goring. I was the project manager and programmer.
I'm Scott. I was a level designer.
I'm Tim. I was a technical designer, and our artist, Kat, couldn't make it, but she'll be upstairs to take any art-related questions and feedback.
So Paper Wings is a 3D flying game for mobile devices, where the player is a paper kite koi fish. And they're trying to fly down this mountain as fast as they can, trying to collect points while going down. And we'll get to customize. It's like, what's happening? It's okay, just so we have customization, but we'll get to that in a second. We're just going to jump into gameplay, where Scott's going to talk about the game mechanics.
All right. Yeah, sorry about the taskbar. We usually try to hide that. But anyway, we'll just hop right into gameplay. So the first screen you should see when you start to play is a calibration screen. And since their game is a gyro game, we want the player to find a comfortable position first before they play. So this screen they can tap, and whatever position will be the center of the gyro. And we also give the player a straight section, which is to help them adjust the gyro controls. And they can move up, down, left, and right, but if you reach the level boundary at the top, you'll be sent back down to the bottom of the level, which is where most of our pickups and gameplay are. So you can pick up score from those wind tunnels, score multiplier from the blue rings, and you also get a speed boost from being close to the ground. And if Tim collides with something here, we can show you how death mechanic works. It'll just send you backwards. And if you pick up the helmet pickup, when you hit the ground, you won't die in the first collision. So in these cave sections, this is where we load the next part of the level. It's sort of a way to hide the loading as it happens, and we also put in those dynamic objects in there to help the player have something to do in that section. All of the levels have multiple paths, so there's many different ways that you can reach the bottom, and different scores and different times can be affected by the way the levels are laid out. So there's a little element of exploration in the levels, even though they're linear and they all end up at the same place. You can explore around and try to find difficult paths, and are you rewarded equally, depending on the difficulty of the path. So that's it for level design. I'm going to hand it off to Spencer to talk more about his role.
Thanks. So as a programmer, my main task was to kind of figure out how to make gyro work. And we really wanted gyro because it was something that was pretty unique to mobile devices. And as well, more importantly, it's something that anyone can kind of pick up, from someone that's very new to games or someone that's an expert. Anyone can enjoy using gyro, and anyone can use it to pretty much its full extent. So we did spend a lot of time to make sure that it was as good as possible. And I'm going to now pass it off to Tim to talk about the art.
All right, so why did we choose the low poly look? Well, the first reason was thematic. Our main character is a paper cat shaped like a fish, and so we wanted the world to be a papercraft world, to have that sort of folded paper aesthetic. So low poly was obviously the best choice for that. We also wanted that solid color look because, yeah, paper. Sorry. Our second reason is optimization. So we have a mobile game, so we wanted to run as smoothly as possible, And so the low poly solid color made it a lot easier. Actually, all of our environmental assets and the terrain mesh all are on the same 16 by 16 pixel texture. All pixels on that texture being a single color, which also helped us change all the color schemes since everything's solid color. And then our final reason was for a simple pipeline. None of us aspired to be artists in the industry, so we needed a way to create a lot of our assets that still look good and that all of us could help create. So the low poly look was the main, yeah. Sorry. So now Scott's going to get into the menus so we can talk a bit more about customization. All right, so the fish model is actually made up of 56 individual scales. Each of them had 3 separate sections on them, a front, middle, and underneath. And we made a modular texture for the fish, so we could change the color of any one of those 3 parts of any one of those 56 scales. It actually took us about a week to create the initial texture, but because we spent so much time on it, we were able to create the 7 extra patterns in less than an afternoon. And now Spencer is going to talk about our last feature, the ghost.
So the ghost is a feature that keeps track of where the player has been in the last race, and then we'll make a ghost racer that you might have seen in the first playthrough. It's this little white guy, he's a white little paper bird. And so this gives us the opportunity to race against kind of people that have played before you, or just try to race against yourself to see if you're improving, see what you did last time, or see what your high scores friend did, and then you can compete against them. And so this is something that we can use a lot, and we can have you guys play against your own companions and see if you can beat each other. So we invite you to come upstairs after and try this out. Thank you, we're Paper Wings. Are there any questions?
Yep.
Sure. What was the motivation behind you guys deciding to do a mobile game?
So the question was, what was the motivation behind a mobile game? And I think Spencer.
I think I personally really like to, because mobile is very big in this town, and mobile is kind of this new challenging sphere of gaming. We really wanted to challenge ourselves into making a game that was for mobile and used some unique things about mobile.
Yep.
Are there other elements in the game that encourage replayability, or is it just the ghost that's fighting?
So the question was, are there any elements in the game for replayability, or is it just the ghost? I think Scott can answer the question.
Yeah, for replayability, that was one of the main reasons I included the multiple paths in the levels, because part of a racing game is figuring out the best path to take. So having lots of paths in there encourages the player to retry and try to find a faster path. And there is a little bit of a lighting change whenever you go into a new level, so there's that, I guess, if you want to see more lighting. And yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
You guys mentioned that you challenge other players with ghosts. Do you guys have anything for interface or like score for that?
So the question is, we said we would be able to challenge each other's ghosts. Do we have any high score interface for that? I think Spencer can answer the question.
So yes, we do. Right now it's grayed out because no one's posted a high score. But if you have in the top 5 best scores, or if you have the top 5 best times, your ghost will, your path will appear on as an option, and you can choose that one to race against.
In working with the gyro, did you run into any challenges with losing sight of the screen when you're navigating?
So the question was, working with gyro, did we ever get a problem where the player couldn't see the screen by tilting? Spencer again.
So that was one of our primary concerns when we started to do up and down tilting. And what we did is we made sure to limit the amount of tilt that was needed to make sure that you can always be able to see the screen. And we also had the orientation setting in the beginning so that you set it at a good facing towards yourself.
Yep.
You mentioned helmet power-up of sorts. Are there any other power-ups?
So the question was, we mentioned the helmet. Are there any other power-ups in the game? And the answer is no. Oh, well, actually, for power-ups, no, we just have the helmet, but there are also the rings and the tunnels that you have to pick up for the score and the speed. But yes, the helmet is the only power-up in the game.
Are there any other questions? I have one more.
Do you guys consider your game complete? I know all game designers will always usually say no, but if you guys have an extra month to work on it, what would you do with that?
So the question is our game complete? And if we had more time, what would we add to the game? And I think as a team we discussed this before, and one of the main things was just adding more levels and also more customization, so more textures and more color choices, and maybe an unlock system through level completion.
And maybe a little bit more optimization so we could get some more lower tiered mobile devices running with it.
All right, if that's everything, I'd like to thank you again and invite you to try to beat the high scores upstairs. This is really
All right, our next group started out with the concept of taking a first-person shooter but putting sort of a unique twist on it. You'll hear a little more about it during their actual presentation, but I just wanted to kind of call it out. Even though they were busy with development, they decided to kind of pay an homage to all the other teams and projects that were being done this term, and so there's some little hidden Easter eggs for each of those different groups, which I thought was pretty cool. That's some fantastic team spirit. I asked this group and said, if you could be any rock band, who would you be? So they said they couldn't pin it down to being a single band, but they said they knew they'd definitely be heavy metal because they consider themselves hardcore. So their mentor was Justin McGuire, and I'd like to bring up Puzzle Guardian.
All right, hi everybody. We are the team behind the Puzzle Guardian. My name is Sean. I was the level and puzzle designer behind the game.
My name is Matthew Hopp. I was the 3D artist and the animator.
I'm Leonardo. I was also level designer and the lighting and texture artist and project manager.
And I'm Paul, and I was a programmer.
All right, so we're just going to jump straight into the game then, with a quick little setup for how to use the controls here, and we'll hop right into the game now. Now, with the Puzzle Guardian, we had this idea of putting the character in a world where everything was made out of jigsaw pieces, and we can kind of see this clearly right off the bat with our first kind of motif piece with a wall missing its puzzle piece. So if we fix that wall, it comes down, and now we have this beautiful vista of the city that we designed. And to talk about the visual style a little bit, I'm going to hand it off to Leo.
Thanks, Sean. So when you're creating these worlds, we decided to have this really colorful and fantasy-looking city. So we decided to add all those trees and cars in living things such as these birds, and all fitting this puzzle thematic. So you can see everything is made of puzzle pieces. You can see the bird carrying one of our coins. And now as Paul approaches the next area, so we can see a bird. Say hi to the bird, Phil. So we are now going to enter our next area, that's a park. So when you're designing this area, I think we put a lot of effort on making it feels really immersive. In a closed area, you can see there are butterflies and a statue and all those decorations. So we figured out that it would be an interesting place for the player to be. So now to talk about our puzzle design, Sean will talk to you.
Thanks again, Leo. So as we approach our first kind of challenge here, we can see that there's bodies of water on either side of us, and the shed here with an object of desire, not quite sure what it is yet, inside there. But we're missing a piece on the door. So in a similar fashion to earlier, we're going to be looking for a puzzle piece to fit in that slot. So if you just kind of look across the water here, there's a shiny one on the other side. Now we're just going to let Paul go over and take a look at that really quick. And we can see that it's a puzzle piece with a missing door handle. So if we bring it back over to the shed, we can actually get access to the shed. We can hopefully get access to whatever is inside there. Now this is the grass piece, our first tool of the game. And to quickly describe how the tools work within our game, I'm going to hand it over to Paul, our technical lead.
Thanks, Sean. So this is our puzzle guide. This is the main way the player is going to traverse through our world and solve puzzles within it. With it, for example, Leo can use it to cross this body of water. Leo, would you like to show? And now lily pads appear. But I seem to see this weird fish, perhaps a koi fish from another game. Sean, would you care to explain?
Absolutely. Those are our trophies. Within the world, there are trophies representing each of the projects that you will see this evening hidden throughout. If you collect all of them, there's a secret ending for you guys, but we will kind of get into that a little bit later. I'm going to hand it back to Paul to just finish up on the puzzle.
Thanks. So some of the challenges with designing this guide was we wanted to have various interactions with the environment. So whereas you could also use it to cross water, you can also plant it in dirt to grow vines to help the player traverse vertically. However, this is not all the functions of the grass piece, for down in this pit is our first enemy. This is the puzzle soldier. He is our most basic enemy within our game, and if Leo were to shoot at it, it is now entrapped in the vines. However, this entrapment won't last forever. He breaks free, and now we must find a different route out of here. So now, this is our second piece in the game, fire, where you use grass to traverse the terrain. Fire destroys it, and destroys whatever is coming your way. And speaking of destroying, and a bunch of new enemies appeared. Matt, why don't you talk about the enemy animations?
Sure, thanks Paul. So as you can see, there's a very stylized animation with their enemies. We wanted them to look like they're almost having trouble to get to the players, because they are made out of puzzle pieces. So we took inspiration from the movie Alice in Wonderland, and also when your enemies are taking damage, they're actually not having an animation to show it. We went with a visual approach, so their faces actually turn to kind of like a hurt expression, and then when they're dead, they have X's for eyes and their tongue is sticking out. And for the gun animation, we had a fully automatic rifle, but we found it was a bit too overpowered, having obviously melee enemies against a rifle. So we made it to a single shot launcher that kind of slowed down that progression, allowing them to get closer to you, and then also having a use for the grass to make for the vines. Towards the end, in our final boss area, there's a big horde of enemies that are coming towards you, so this makes use for that.
Actually, Leo, I'm just going to stop you before we get to the final area, because we want to keep a little bit of a surprise for you guys to see. Hopefully you guys will come upstairs and, maybe even finish our level that you can see here, and maybe even find all the trophies and get to the secret ending. So on behalf of myself and the team behind Puzzle Guardian, I'd like to thank you for your time and hope to see you later. All right, we'd like to take this time to answer any questions. So the question was, what are the coins for? Paul, do you want to actually answer that one?
Thanks, Sean. You see, at the beginning of our game, we want to have an upgrade system to encourage the player to, have faster reload time, run faster. However, due to time constraints, we weren't allowed to integrate that. So we ended up removing it, but we kept the coins in just because we didn't feel like getting rid of them. Also, they helped guide the player through our level.
So at the very beginning, you showed a really interesting kind of puzzle dynamic in the game, and then you kind of quickly flipped over to combat. Why did you choose to add combat, and what do you think it added to the game that you weren't getting with just a puzzle mechanic?
All right, so the question was, why did we decide to add combat to a game that clearly focuses around puzzles? Well, we wanted to take the the traditional first-person genre is usually action and combat-centric. We wanted to bring out, a little bit of a puzzle mechanic as well, so we wanted to try and tie the two together, and we ended up kind of making it more so like the first half is more about puzzles and the second half is more about combat. I hope that answered your question. All right, any more questions? No? Okay, well, thanks for your time again, and we hope to see you guys upstairs.
All right, our next group came together with some very diverse backgrounds. One from film school, another from programming and web design, a third from animation, and a fourth from a traditional art. Now when I asked them, what's unique about your game? They said, we have a knight that runs on walls. What else do you need? Now I was asking them as well about some interesting facts, and this one I didn't actually find out until just this morning. They decided to take sword lessons together to truly immerse themselves in a medieval feeling, which I thought was pretty cool. Now what I wonder is, did their design mentor, Jared Metcalf, did he join them for those? And if so, hopefully it didn't end in a duel like Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert. I didn't say which duel. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring up Atrophy.
Alright, we're Atrophy. Before we get started though, my name is Jameson Beck. I was the level and narrative designer as well as the project manager.
My name is Nicholas Gilbert. I was the 2D and 3D artist.
My name is Chris King. I was the programmer.
Hi, I'm Brad from Faro, and I was the technical artist.
Atrophy is a 3D action platformer with a mix of endless runner mechanics, in the sense that we're forcing the player to move forward, not through forced momentum, but through a monster that will be constantly chasing you through the game. Players will play as Kilo, the fastest knight in the land who was out on a mission, when he was ambushed by this monster and all of his men were killed, but he was able to escape. Instead of being the knight that he should have been, he ran away in fear, and that's kind of where our game comes. He's now going back to his home castle. So we'll start to play. Nick, can you kind of run us through some of the mechanics we're going to be doing on a constant basis?
Sure. Okay, so the main mechanics in the game are all centered around this sort of running away. So the main actions that the player can do are jumping over obstacles, sliding under other obstacles, and the whole challenge of the game comes from doing this without getting caught by the monster that's chasing you later on. Now, Kilo the Knight also has another special ability that Dan sort of alluded to, which is wall running. There's also another type of obstacle in the game that the player can sort of avoid, but will slow them down if they get hit by it. And that's those puddles right there. All right, now coming up here, we've got a chained wall run section, which is something that the more hardcore players can get into. All right, now I'm going to hand it off to Chris to talk about the technical aspects of the game.
Alright, so as a programmer for Atrophy, my main job was to create the tools that my team used to create the game and experience that we were looking for. Two of the main tools I'm going to talk about are a Bezier curve system, which we used for our railed camera, which Jacobson will talk about later, and the Purge pathing, which you'll see coming up. The second one was a heat map system, which we used to quickly find problems in the level and iterate upon them, just to sort of find them and quickly fix them. Alright, so here we're kind of hitting the in-between point between our tutorial and the real game, so I'm going to pass it off to Jacobson.
Thank you. As he was saying, we're now transitioning into our main gameplay, which is a constant chase from the Purge. He also mentioned our railed camera system, which is important for numerous reasons. We originally gave control of the camera to the player, but it tended to be too much information. It was almost just more distracting. So in order to make the experience more fluid, we took away control, and now with our railed camera, we're able to focus the player. All they have to do is look at their path and figure out how best to execute it, and not have to worry about finding the path. With our railed camera, we're also able to create some interesting camera shots to create a more cinematic feel. We didn't want to just create a game, we wanted to create an experience. We wanted players to feel like they needed to run away, not because we told them, but because they're scared, because they're stressed, and because they're fearful. Nick, why don't you kind of run through our art and how we're really trying to push the feeling of the game?
All right, okay, well, the obstacles in the game all have some visual patterning go into them because the player has to be able to react very quickly. So everything that the player jumps over is made out of wood, and walls that they should wall run on are red colored. Also, everything that they dip or slide under is made out of stone. Now, we originally had 3 levels, so there were 3 color palettes throughout the game, but since we seamlessly merged that into one level, we've got sort of a fading between the color palettes as the game progresses, which lends itself to that progression. And then, just in general, the art style tends to be very off angles and no straight lines. Everything's sort of getting overwhelming Kilo and looming above him. Now, we've got a really cool part coming up, which I'm going to pass this off to Rafe so we can talk about.
All right, well, thanks, Nick. Basically, one of the main challenges in the team was to create this strange childlike substance come to life. So we had to go through many iterations in the whole process to make it really, really believable. We had first to create a shader that was able to look viscous and thick enough. And also we wanted to make sure that it looked aggressive as possible. So in order to do that, we had to play around with some blade shape animations in Maya, which gave us a lot of flexibility into making this fluid, dynamic effects you're seeing right now on the screen. And definitely it was very, very interesting how this process went. Okay, so Jake, why don't you keep talking about more progression?
The player starts and ends with the same set of abilities, so we needed to make sure the player felt like there was a sense of progression in other ways. We managed to do this with our level design and both with our enemy. The levels start very open. There's not a whole lot of like combining you in, so it's more of a happy scenario. Obviously, we changed our color palette. We start tightening the player in. We're stressing them. The enemy, obviously the Purge is now center fold. You can't forget about it. It's no longer behind you, like behind the camera. It's now full front. And with the camera switch, we're also able to limit the player's vision, which just increases the stress factor because I don't know exactly what's coming. But we're getting close to the castle, so we're hoping maybe there's some safety in there. We're about to find out. I guess we'll never know. So we're Atrophy. We really want to thank you guys for coming out and watching our presentation. And we would love to invite you upstairs to maybe come and escape the Purge. We would love to open the floor to questions now. Back there.
Yeah, I noticed that the player stopped. Is there a reason why you allowed the player to stop instead of just running forever automatically?
The question was, we allow the player to stop moving. They're not forced to move the entire time. This probably comes from our original design, which had a mix of slow and fast sections, which we had to cut down due to scope and time. And so we decided to go with more of our faster sections, but we maintained the ability to move at will. And yeah, that would probably explain it pretty well. Cool. Yes?
If you had more time.
If we had more time, what would we improve or add? Okay, we all four have our own answer for this. If we had more time, I would like to spend more time on the cameras. They're really the selling point of our game. They're the unique part that really sells our feelings, our emotions. And I would like to really fine-tune those because there's a few locations where they're not where they need to be. And that's what I would spend my extra time on.
Given a little extra time, I would have absolutely loved to include a section that we cut pretty late in production. It was actually a tower that you sort of spiraled up, and the Purge was like bubbling up at you and chasing you up it. Unfortunately, we just didn't have enough time to get it in, but I would really like to have it in.
Okay, so if I had more time, I would definitely spend on creating more hazards into the environment. And that would bring up like adding more visual effects and animations to the Purge to give a sense of difference in the hazards that can happen in the game.
We originally had this whole mechanic where if you were heavy, you would break through certain floors, and that was really cool because it opened up some more paths and some more ways to sort of punish the player if they weren't playing very well, which I kind of like.
Yes?
In a game like this, with mechanics very close to like an endless runner and typical gestures, why do you guys decide not to develop the whole tablets?
The question is, since we're fairly close to an endless runner, why did we not go with the mobile design? Well, as we were saying earlier, our original design was a much larger scope and required much more mechanics to happen. And we cut down those mechanics and become more of a runner-esque, but we've also, the mobile platform wouldn't be able to handle the wall running and everything else without a lot of extra time on the controls that we didn't have time to spend on. So we decided it best just to stick with the PC platform and continue from there with the time we had left. All right. We want to thank you once again for coming up. You might have noticed we were able to put in our name for a high score with our times. That is updated to a server. We'd love to have you come upstairs and try and dethrone our high scores. And yes, we're Atrophy. Thank you once again for coming out.
So like I promised earlier, I'm going to keep things moving along quickly. You're not here to see me, but to see all the fantastic projects and then get the chance to play them upstairs. So this next game has been described as a dungeon-esque Guitar Hero, or also a rhythmless rhythm game, but in a good way. They said the highlight of their development cycle was the crunch time, because it really brought everyone together, fueled by coffee, tea, and a little bit of sarcasm. Their design mentor was Brent Disbro, and I'd like to present to you Miss Orderly.
Yay, working tech. Thanks, Dan. We're Team Disorderly. My name is Jamie, and I was project manager, narrative designer, GUI programmer, and art support.
My name is Jeremy. I was level design, set dressing, and balance.
My name is Keegan. I'm the character, environment, and GUI artist.
And my name is Garrick. I was the gameplay programmer.
Disorderly is a 3D casual action runner game where the player controls 4 kind of weird video game characters who were hidden away as Easter eggs by the game developers who loved them and who had to hide them because marketing thought they were kind of weird. But now a patch is threatening to delete them, so they have to run away from the patch, play their way through the game, make their way into the online leaderboard, and then escape to the internet, live forever in peace. So let's jump into our tutorial. So the green mask you can see on the left here, that's the patch trying to delete them. And we've got 4 characters in game, but I'd like to introduce you to 2 of them first. So the red character is Tika, and he's our male warrior fairy.
You can't escape my rainbow.
And the orange character is Bobess, and she's our orc druid scientist.
Plants mean I won't die alone.
Garrick's now going to walk you through some of our basic gameplay mechanics.
So, as you can see, there are 2 characters on screen currently, and they're swapping positions. And there are also numbers in front of those characters. So character swapping is our primary mechanic, and as you can perhaps guess from the numbers, it's achieved by simultaneously pressing the number keys associated with the characters that you want to swap. Swapping is used for things such as collecting power-ups, which exist between lanes and require swapping in order to obtain, or defeating enemies, such as the enemies on screen right now. You may also notice that these enemies are color-coded to match the colors of some of our player characters. Jamie will now explain to you a little bit more about how that works.
So the shapes you can see underneath the characters, those are actually their health bars. And these all used to be circles, but when we were playtesting, we had a playtester who was colorblind. So we decided to actually make these into different shapes. So the player isn't just color matching, they're also shape matching. Now that we've got all 4 characters, I'd like to introduce you to the other 2 characters. So you've got Mona, the purple one, and she's our female-booted mage dwarf. I'm too pretty to be deleted. And you've got Mena, the green character, and he's our male archer dwarf, and he's a little bit silly. He lost his bow, so he can only throw his arrows.
I miss Bowie.
So Garrick's now going to explain to you their basic abilities.
So, as you may have noticed, our characters each behave a little bit differently. Tika has a short-range, high-damage attack. Mena, the green character, has a long-range piercing attack. Bobess, the orange character, reflects enemy projectiles back at them. And Mona, the purple character, has a much more complex ability that Jeremy is now going to explain in greater detail.
Mona's orb is our most intricate ability. What it is a projectile that Mona fires out into the enemies. If it hits her corresponding enemy, which you can see there is the wisp, it will actually explode on impact and damage all enemies around it. But if she uses it on any other enemy, it will actually linger on them. And then you have to actually proc it with another player character's attack. When you do this, it will explode as well, damaging all enemies around it, and also send healing hearts back at the party to keep them rejuvenated. Now, I'd like to talk to you about our Princess Power Bar. Here you can see the 4 character portraits at the bottom, and it's slowly filling. How you fill it is by killing enemy characters. Every enemy you kill, you get 1 princess point. By getting these points, you're able to unlock a special power for each character, which corresponds to whichever portrait is lit up. If Jamie presses space right now, we can actually see Princess Power engage, and this pretty much creates a super powerful moment for whichever character it's selected on. It allows them to go through waves of enemies and also changes the pace of the gameplay. We did this just to make the player feel powerful. Now I'm going to hand it off to Keegan to talk about his art.
Now, one of our greatest challenges was actually to get all 8 characters in here with a very short amount of time. So one thing you first notice is that a lot of the enemies look very similar to some of the heroes. That's because they use their recycled models with a few tweaks of their models, as well as a few retexturing. Another thing you'll notice, especially with the heroes, they all have very similar motions. That's mainly because they draw all their animations from an animation master model, which has all the data that they need to move and render. Therefore, all the time that would need for one character, or 4, can actually encompass all 8. Now back to Jeremy with level design.
Our level design philosophy was that we wanted to be able to kill the player off within 3 to 5 minute interval. And we also didn't want a totally linear and repetitive experience. So what we decided to do was hand place the enemies in sections so we could create flow for the player, but we also wanted to be able to change which enemies came up based on how the player was doing. So we implemented a difficulty system, which will choose a wave to spawn based on whether the player is taking a lot of damage or not. As well as for our balance, I'd like to talk about our color matching aspect of it. We really wanted to make it puzzle-like and hammer home the color matching. So the idea is that it's always the optimal strategy to line up the correct colored player character with their counterpart. And now to Garrett to speak about our iteration process.
Now, as you all know, one of the most important parts of developing a game is not the final product, but the processes that go into creating that final product. Our game has gone through an enormous amount of iterations. In fact, it started off as a side-scrolling RPG with grid-based tactical combat based around a single-player character as a mage. Obviously, this has changed a lot, and one of the big drivers for this was the desire to find a single mechanic that we could really drill down on and focus on, as opposed to having a more complex and difficult-to-manage suite of mechanics. Rapidly changing our design frequently during development obviously caused us a lot of challenges, and this taught us a lot about the value of planning, pre-production, and communication within the team. And these are lessons that we're very proud to take with us from BFS. Now, as you can tell, Jeremy is losing a lot of health on his characters, and so I'm going to pass it off to Jamie so she can explain a little bit more about the endgame.
So with our main mechanic being swapping and the game revolving around party management, we wanted to keep the player in the optimal fun zone for as long as possible, the optimal fun zone being having all 4 characters be alive. So once one character dies, we ramp up the difficulty so the player isn't actually able to stay alive for much longer. And as you can see, Jeremy is now struggling to keep his characters alive. So once the player dies, they're brought to the online leaderboard where it's discovered that the internet connection is actually down, and so the characters can actually escape. So they have to play the game again and again and again. Oh no! So this is our game Disorderly, and we thank you very much for your time. And we encourage you to come upstairs and make your own way to the online leaderboard. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Player Jack, you said you made it harder to kill them off. Why did you not go the other way and potentially have an ability to bring them back?
We wanted, or the question was, why didn't we make it easier for the players to be able to bring back other characters upon death? The idea here was that we really wanted to maintain the short gameplay intervals and hammer home our difficulty. And what we found was that it really wasn't fun to play with less characters. And instead of dragging out the gameplay period, we wanted to keep it short and sweet. So we wanted to work hard to kill them off fast without actually removing the pleasurable aspect of it. Any other questions? Dave?
Dennis on the live stream says, have you guys thought about making it multiplayer? It would be cool fighting with friends over the best spot or row.
The question was, have we thought about making it multiplayer? Because it looks like it would be fun to play against another player fighting for a spot or a row. We had considered similar aspects to that, but within our current design, we don't feel like we could create a fun player experience fighting against each other. We really like the current enemy interactions with the player characters, and that would take a lot of redesign and rescoping in order to push that out. Perhaps as a goal for afterwards, but in the current scope, we did not wish to pursue it.
If I'd like to add, players can mod the game and have one player per like number on the keyboard and like kind of have fun that way and kind of just mess with each other's minds. Yep.
Is there a reason you guys went with like a horizontal perspective as opposed to a vertical perspective?
The question was, is there a reason why we went with a horizontal perspective instead of a vertical perspective? This was a decision that we did have to make. Originally, it was a vertical perspective, but what we found is that the spacing between the characters, or the enemies, as they came towards the player characters, did not allow you to actually see who was coming where very easily. And we really wanted to be able to pace out the enemies so the player could actually strategize a little bit about how they're going to take care of the set of enemies. Not only that, the horizontal view allows us to work on our artwork a lot more and really make it look nice. If that's it, thank you for, yes, thank you for listening to us, and thank you for your time.
So to add a little bit of personality to each of the intros, I asked each of the groups to answer sort of a short questionnaire for me, you know, some interesting things that happened during their development, funny stories, biggest challenge, and this group actually gave me a joke to potentially tell. But, like I promised at the beginning, I will not compete with the comic stylings of Dave or Andrew. I know when I'm outmatched. So I'll just move on to their development highlight, which they felt was the ability to work on multiple platforms. Also, when asked which rock band they would be, they said they would be Girl Generation. Oh, by that, I guess I already know part of the answer. By a show of hands, how many people know who that is? Okay, so it's a fair number. I had no idea, so I decided to do a little bit of research, looked online, and the very first video I saw of theirs had 125 million views. So at this point I realized I need to spend less time filing games, more time on pop culture, and in particular on South Korean bands. So no further ado, I'd like to bring up Inside, and their design mentor was Gord Cooper. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. We are Team Inside. I am Nisha, game artist and UI designer. I also love to play our game Inside on mobile tablet device.
I'm Daniel, project manager, level designer, and I like to play on my phone.
Hi, I'm Simon. I'm programmer of the team, and I like to play this game on PS Vita.
Inside is 3D level-based running game on mobile device where you play inside a young girl. Memories. Oh, cool. You guide her through the fantasy world, bring back her memory and dream, and take her back to the real world. Why we designed this game, we believe that without dream, we cannot have passion. And we may not know what is the true value of our life. So we embed this concept into our game and make this game remind you, never forget who you are. And that's Claire, our Claire. She gave up her dream when she was young because of a tragedy in her past. But one day, she's sent into another world that represents her forgotten memory. Right now, her journey is about to begin. Daniel is going to talk about gameplay.
Thank you, Nisha. All right. So when designing the game for mobile, we really wanted to deliver a beautiful world as well as really concise control scheme for a touchscreen. In order to do so, we opted for a 3D world, 3D character, so we could provide the twists and turns you're going to see on screen, as well as experiment with an uncommon camera angle. This camera angle also allows us to add some thematic feels into the camera angle because it provides a dreamlike ambience. And because of this, we really needed to make sure our controls were precise and felt really good. To do so, we split the screen into 3 areas: the left tap for jumping, the right tap for braking, and the bar at the bottom for memory break. What Memory Break allows is the players to have a small break in the gameplay in order to make up for some of the procedural randomness using their mechanical skill. By having this score-based objective, we can score the players at the end and rank them from D to triple S, adding a little strategy to the game. And speaking of procedural level design and strategy, Sim over here would love to talk to you about optimization and some of our procedural level design.
Thank you, Daniel. As Daniel mentioned, we designed procedural level generation. For the dynamic level generation, we needed faster iteration from the level design tweaking to gameplay test. So we implemented Overall Level Integrator, which is a tool to integrate the 2D level editor and Unity 3D engine. It allowed us the faster the level design iteration. However, because of the dynamic level design and being on mobile devices, optimization was one of the critical issues in the game because we couldn't take advantages from the static objects or the powerful processor. So we invested a lot of time to deal with the optimization issues from polygons, shaders, audio assets, physics, to the particle effect management. For example, particle effect manager measures real-time frame rate, and when the frame rate drops under a certain threshold, it drops all the particles for the smooth gameplay. With the optimizations, you can enjoy the smooth gameplay with the beautiful graphics and the dynamic challenging level design. When you try inside and upstairs, please enjoy the beautiful graphics and challenging level design. And also feel free to ask us more about the optimizations too. Now, are you enjoying the beautiful graphics too? Yeah, sure you do. There are cute. Nisha, our cute artist, will explain her process considering artwork on the inside. Nisha?
Thank you, Sim. And thank you for telling me cute. Okay, for the art, I got inspiration from Disney process because I think dark and blue color represents Claire's smile very well. One of the most challenging things that I have in this game is because of the mobile phone limitation on the performance. So at first, I tried to do a lot of fancy things into the game, and Sam say, no, that's too expensive, Nisha. Okay, so Nisha take a lot of things out, and 90% of our shader is just a lit shader. And so the thing's it only depends on the texture, and that's super challenge for me. We also consider a lot about UI design. We try to go for simple and clean, so the player can understand what is going on the screen just in the first glance. And more than that, we also think about where is the player main focus on the screen, so we can put the UI elements on the screen at the proper position, and then the player can have the best experience of the gameplay.
One of the biggest challenges when dealing with mobile development for us was some of the restrictions at first, but then it really taught us a lot of lessons about iterative design, agile development, how to be creative with technology, and communicating to the player as well as each other. But by overcoming our own ordeals, just like Claire, we can present to you this game, Inside. And now we'd like to open the floor to some questions.
Why did you guys decide to do Vita?
The question was, why did you decide to do Vita? One of the things that happened during development was that Unity announced a partnership with Sony Mobile, or the PlayStation Mobile rather, and we felt that because our game was a touch-screen-based game, we'd lose more by not trying it. And our programmer Sim felt he was up to the challenge, and it was never part of the initial design, but because it showed up, we felt like, why not, right?
You guys said you had this concept of like the game being about trying to rediscover yourself. Why is it an endless runner?
So the question is, we have the game story about fighting about yourself, but while the game is running. In fact, when she's going to this world, before she go into this world, she forgot some things about her past and she give up her dream. And that's because one thing that is like a darkness in her mind. So when she goes inside this memory world, she's chasing by that darkness. She don't want herself to gain the memory back, and that's why she's running away.
Okay.
If you were to publish this game, how would you imagine selling it from a business standpoint? Would you sell it as a free-to-play, or have you guys thought about that at all?
The question was if we thought about, have we had any consideration for selling the game? I like that question. One of the main things we really wanted to try to do, but were unable to, was compete for Imagine Cup back in March. So the game was ready fairly early on, after we changed ideas. This is the second iteration of Inside. What we really want to do after school is host it on sites such as Congregate. Like, the game's fairly small, but it's infinitely replayable because we have the procedural generation. We might release, or we thought of releasing a version with more sections, more art assets later on, finishing the game up. But right now, we'd rather have more people play it and then build Infamy kind of that way on like Congregate and other sites.
The game design is pretty driven by like this being like multi-platform. Because it was procedurally generated, how would you say? How long would you expect players to play this? And what sort of design challenges what sort of motivation does the player have to like play an hour of this? It seems like it's pretty straightforward. So what are some of the challenges that you have in your level design?
Yeah, so the question was what is the motivation of the procedural level generation, and what is our expectation of the gameplay length? We designed the procedural level generation based on the build chart. Actually, we designed the level chunk of the difficulty 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and we defined all the difficulty for the sections, and also we procedurally generate the build chart. So every time you play a game, you see different game level progression, but always keep the difficulty ramp up. So you can replay, and every time you can different level design, but always you see the difficulty progression. So and we have the D2 triple S the ranks, so it will give you the challenge to play again to the levels.
Awesome. As we mentioned, we have a D to triple S score ranking, and if anyone can score triple S upstairs, we have a special surprise for you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
So for each of the groups that have come up, I've been mentioning their design mentors. But I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank the other mentors who come in once a week and offer guidance for tech, for art, and for audio. So big thanks to John Wagner, Mike Hayes, Steve Roy, Kelly Wright, Jared Barber, and Sean Wagner. I'd also like to note that there is a solo project upstairs called Ghost Light, as well as there is a 3D portfolio piece. So please check them out when you head upstairs. Now this final group, they came up with an initial pitch, which was a pet simulator in space. Somewhere along the way, things went horribly yet wonderfully wrong, and with the guidance from their design mentor, Brett Disbro, they went in a completely different direction. And they ended up with something that's visually stunning and very unique. So I'd like to call up Nebular Online.
Hi everyone, how's it going? Good, I guess. There's a lot of people here. So we're team Nebular Online. My name is Willie Campos. I'm the network and backend programmer.
I'm Keidu, character artist.
I'm Adir. I'm the environment, technical, and visual effects artist.
And I'm Chema. I'm a front-end programmer, UI artist, and project manager of the team.
Okay, so what is Nebular Online? It's a third-person camera view, action, multiplayer online battle arena in space. So what do we mean by that? Well, just previous to the gameplay, I'm just going to explain a little bit of this. We have these 5 game type modes. The whole game is balanced around 3v3, which is the one we're going to show you. So just jump in.
Okay, Nebular Online has 3 characters. The first one is scored 709. He's a robot hunter. We have Lily. She is a mage and support. She can be played attacking or defending. And we have Asura. He's a mid character. Can you choose Asura up here? Okay. Since the game takes place in the solar system, we decide to make characters based on technology, elemental magic. All the characters, they have unique silhouettes and lights. It means that you can always see the character in bright or dark parts.
Now that we just jumped to the game, I just want to explain to you what's going on right here. As you can see, like our main mechanic realized about jumping from one planet to the other. And you can see on the top right part of the screen, there's a mini-map. You are the green dot, so you can know where you're going. Right now, Adir is capturing one of the planets that are in the central orbit, which is like closest to the sun. These planets yield victory points. Once a team has like 1,000 of these points, they win. So Adir has these priorities, right? Because he knows that he needs to capture these planets first. All the other planets, however, they do not yield victory points. They yield money. What do you use money for? Well, you use money for buying abilities for each character. As Kadu previously said, there are different abilities for each character. In this case, Asura has like abilities that helps him deal damage at close range. In order to talk about environment art, I'm going to pass the microphone to the environment artist, Adir.
Hi. So making the environment for Nebular Online was a bit challenging, because in our game we don't have up and we don't have down, since the player can go around the planets. So we decided to go with this unique skybox to always help the player orient himself and know where they're looking at. Also, we decided to go with a unique color scheme for each orbit that we have in the galaxy to help the player know where, which planet they're standing on right now, and also which planet he can jump to, and how he can progress the game. Also, as you can see, the color palettes, it's like more green, and then it goes to the desert and the volcanic planets. That gives the player also the feeling of progression and makes it more intense as the player goes to the planets in the middle. Now I think we have a lot of money, so I'm going to hand it off to Kadu to explain about the abilities.
Yeah, just for this game we have a lot of money because we want to show some abilities. Can you open the store, really? So each character has unique 6 abilities, but the players just can choose 4 each time. What gives chance to the player to customize characters and also create new strategy. Okay, Willy bought a jump, stump, and firewall. Perfect. You want to buy more things? I think you want to keep everybody. Let's go with it. He's gonna jump and he's gonna have a fight with this character. Okay, can you show a skill with it? This is the firewall, this is the ultimate. He locks the enemy in his fire and he receives bonus defense. If you are with your team also receives this defense. And he already used all the abilities. Can you just show the jump, Willy? Perfect. This is 4 abilities for this character. And if you want to see the other characters or more abilities, you can play the game upstairs.
So I'm going to pass it on to Willy right now to talk about the custom networking solution.
Thank you. So about the networking, it's funny. We wanted to use not use Unity's built-in system. We wanted to have total control, server and client side. So we managed to build our own custom networking solution, which is really cool. We loved it. So besides that, we added a lot of optimization to code to the communication transferring from the server and client and vice versa. And one thing that's really important to know about the game is that we designed the whole game and coded it to be fully scalable. What does this mean? Like, it means that we have an online database, which Chema will talk a bit in a bit, and also that allows us to have a lot of players to connect to the matchmaking server and stuff. And also, in game, we designed the whole game to be scalable, as in we want to add more characters. It will be really easy to do. So I'm gonna let Chema talk to you a little bit about the database.
Right, so as you could see before, all the abilities are made based on, Willie and I just sat down and was like, we need to find out what does every ability, like we need to build a tool that can make every possible ability just based on certain different data types. So we did that and we uploaded this database to an SQL server. And every time a match is started, the client just downloads every ability that's there and just creates it around that. So we took this decision because we could, for two reasons mainly. The first one is so we can tweak easily, like all the different abilities, because balance is an important issue with this kind of games. The second reason was, as Willie said, to scale different possibilities. So if we wanted to add a fourth character to this game, we could add very simply just a different skill set to his abilities, and then just tweak around the values, and then in 2 or 3 days, just immediately go into playtest rather than just build the whole skills from the code itself. Well, so to finalize the presentation, I want to pass the microphone to Adir.
Yeah, so I want to thank you everyone for coming here and watching the presentation. I hope you enjoy. On this note, I want to thank the GD35s for helping us playing right now, and they're upstairs on the second floor. And I want to invite you all to come upstairs and play and compete against each other and see if you can be the ruler of the galaxy. Thank you, it was Nebular Online.
So now we'll open the floor for questions. Yes?
Why did you choose to have the characters move so slowly?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, it looks like the characters move quite slowly. Is there a reason behind that?
Right, okay, so the question was, why do the characters move so slowly? And Willie's going to answer this question.
Sorry, thank you. So, there's a reason for the characters to move like this. We had planned for every character to move out slightly different, but there's the reason why you see so slow is that when they attack, they have a back pedal penalty. So when they're attacking, they're moving really slow. After 2 seconds, after each attack, they start moving normally. That's why this character also has a gap closer or escaping ability, which is the jump.
Thanks.
The planets, they seem pretty claustrophobic. Your game is kind of focused around combat. I was wondering if, and the coolest part about this is seeing a guy leap from one planet to another across the solar system. So, did you guys ever consider adding any mechanics like use light?
Okay, so the question was, why do, if we ever consider to have any kind of game mechanic that's in between flights, because jumping from one planet to the other is the coolest part for the game. Oh. So, sure, I'm gonna let Kadu answer this.
Yeah, the initial idea is some characters, they can have attack on other planets, and we decided to don't do it right now, but for sure it's a possibility, and we would like to implement this feature.
Yes?
I noticed that when you die, it's a really short respawn before you come back to the game, and then you just start a planet and immediately go. Do you guys ever consider more of a punishment for dying, which sort of allows you to, it seems to go on for quite a while, and a lot of games traditionally, a bit of a cooldown before you jump back in?
Right, so the question was, our cooldown counter is slightly short, if we ever consider to have slightly more large times for that.
I'm going to take that. So, yeah, we wanted to make the game based on PvP. That's why we don't have any AI. So if you penalize someone for dying for a minute, they're going to be playing that long, and it's going to be a little bit boring for them. And it's going to allow, since we don't have any AI, it's going to allow the enemy team to just come back and push a lot. That's why we have a really short dying time.
just to add a little bit to that, we also thought of having like the more skills you have or the more money you have put into your character, the more time you have left to respawn. And it was very tricky to like having this rubber band effect when if I'm very powerful, I can just kill off, like have a triple double kill off the other team, and they have like a very hard time to recover. And one of our pillars when designing this game were like action or flashiness. So we wanted to keep these like the action alive all the time rather than having like players like punish them that bad. Also adding this kind of mechanic would like make players fear death more and be a little bit less brave to that. So maybe we just wanted them to let them go inside and just battle. Sure.
It seems like the game like this a lot of like playtesting here. What were some of the big things you guys learned from that?
Right. So the question is, it seems that this game has a lot of used a lot of playtesting. What were the challenges behind it?
Oh, balancing the characters, balancing the damage, the cooldowns, all of that. Like the game, I would say it's rather balanced. It's not perfect, but it's pretty much balanced as in comparison to what it was a few weeks ago. And I don't know, like estimation on hours playtesting this thing was, we have, I don't know, like more than 600 matches going on already, so yeah.
That was pretty hard. Yes, Rick?
What do you guys feel you would need to do before this is ready to release commercially and to be put out in the market? How far is there to go?
Right, so the question is how far do we need to go to make this a like product that it's ready and ready to go out to market? In my opinion, we have a lot of features that we had to cut down because of time constraints. One of those features, as it was mentioned before, I think it was like minions. We wanted to have like these NPCs crawling around and other stuff. But yeah, definitely making more characters, adding more value like to the players that say like, okay, so this game is cool, but what does it make me go again and play more and having more of this game? Just figuring out that would be like my first priority.
Adding a little bit to that, as Chema said, it's just right now we only have 3 classes, but we want to have 5 and at least 2 of each class. That will make 10 characters for the release game. And also adding like right now we only have one ability and it's only 1 level. We want to level up all the abilities also. That will be something that's pretty much up there.
So we have time for one more question. All right, so I want to thank you all for coming. Once again, I invite you upstairs to play the game, and thank you very much.
All right, so we finished up the presentation portion of this evening. So I'd ask that you please take the time to fill out the evaluation forms. The feedback's really important, as Dave said, as the students continue to grow as game developers, and it goes to them directly and unfiltered. And as an added incentive for going through and filling out those forms, you may have noticed there's a blue ticket. That ticket is good for 1 drink of your choice, upstairs on the 2nd floor. And if you find after that drink you're still feeling a little parched, fear not. You can go and just speak to any one of the students and they'll give you another ticket. And also if you haven't played their game, spend a few moments and give the game and give them some feedback as well. And last thing, for any friends, colleagues who weren't able to make it tonight, there's been a live feed going this entire time. This feed will also become non-live and will live for all prosperity on the VFS website, so they can check it out at a later time. So let's head upstairs, let's enjoy a drink and a bite to eat, play some great games, and socialize with our other game devs. Thanks a lot for everyone coming out tonight.
Thank you.
round.